Hey, this is Peter, and welcome to another Take a Break with Valley CAD. So, one of my favorite things to do in surface modeling is this feature that's called a trim surface command. You can get away with a lot of really cool modeling techniques with this. And so in today's video, we're going to come in and utilize trim, but we're going to come in and look at the standard trim portion of that. So, go get your favorite cup of coffee or tea, and I'll see you in SOLIDWORKS in just a click. Hey there, welcome to SOLIDWORKS. So you'll see here on my SOLIDWORKS screen that I just have two standard planar surfaces here. And all that I did here is I did a surface plane on my top plane, and then I did an offset surface at a value of 12 inches. And also this top plane here is a square that's 12 inches around. So when you're working with surfaces, you're not able to come in and do a cut extrude feature because you don't have any geometry to cut away. So what we do have though is this thing that's called a trim surface. And there's two types of trim surfaces. One of them is a standard trim, and the other one's called a mutual trim. In this scenario, we're gonna be looking at the standard trim only, and why it's kind of pretty powerful actually. So what we're gonna do first, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna create a hole that's gonna be on this top face. So just clicking on this surface here, I'm gonna say let's make a sketch, and we'll just simply make a circle on this first one here. And we'll say okay to that. So with this simple circle, we can come in and specify the size of it. Where do we want it to be located? So we'll say a 3-inch diameter on there. And maybe from this edge to this edge, we need to make those 2.5. Because SOLIDWORKS is a parametric 3D modeling software, right? Parametric means that we need to apply rules to the software. So that's why I'm gonna come in and just add these rules. And also it helps me sleep at night knowing that I'm modeling something that's fully defined, right? All right. So now we have that set up. It's very standard dimensioning scheme here. And from here, watch what you can do here. One of them is if I come up to my surface modeling tab, and by the way, if you don't have surfaces tab on your system, what you'll need to do is right click on one of your existing tabs, and you'll see tabs there, and you'll see surfaces. Just click on that, and now we'll bring up the surfaces command tab for you. So as we look here, under my Surfaces tab, SOLIDWORKS has a lot of things grayed out. This is one thing I love about this software. It will gray out features that really can't be used based off of what you have currently in your geometry or what your sketch is currently doing. So what we do see here on the far right is this thing called Trim Surface. With that selected, as I mentioned, there are two types of surface trims that we can do. And one of them is standard, and the other one is mutual. Mutual is really powerful in its own. That's when you have two surface bodies that intersect each other. SOLIDWORKS will come through and say, hey, where you intersect, let's use that as our cutting planes or our cutting bodies. So in this scenario, we're gonna do standard. And notice that mutual is grayed out. The reason is because I'm coming from a sketch. And so with a standard, what does get required here is a sketch geometry. So with standard selected, my trim tool is gonna be sketch number 5. That's the circle that I sketched up. And it's gonna ask you to keep sections or to remove sections. So in this scenario, I wanna remove this simple hole in the middle. With that selected, say okay to that. And you'll see here, SOLIDWORKS came in and created a little cutout like that. That's great. Now, you might be sitting there going, okay, so I made a hole, who cares? So here's what's really cool about doing the standard trim command. When you're coming in with a sketch and you have multiple entities inside of it or segments, SOLIDWORKS actually treat each of those segments as a new terminating edge on whatever plane you might be sketching on. What I mean by is this. So if I come in here and make a new sketch, and we'll do another circle, right? And we come in here, let's make this one so it's centered about my origin. I don't have to dimension it as much. And we'll come in here and give it a value. And we'll say that this one here is gonna be a 4-inch diameter on it. And then from there, we'll say okay to that. Now, before I get out of my sketch, what I wanna do is break up the circle into separate entities. So there are two types of commands that we could use for this. One of them is a segment command. Segment is a really awesome tool if you want to make it so that there's an equidistant circle or entities out of it. And what this will do is we'll split this up into equal arcs. The other one is split entities. What this does is I come through and I click on a point, and then I'll add another point there. What SOLIDWORKS just did here was it split the circle into two separate arcs, and it added a relation called co-radial. If I come in here and I add 2 more points, you'll see here that SOLIDWORKS is coming in, and now I have 4 different entities on this one. And they're all just standard circles on it, or arcs I should say. And so from here, we can come in here and give it values such as like these 2 points, I want them to be horizontal to each other, and these 2 points here to be horizontal, right? Oh, sorry, not vertical, I meant horizontal there. As I was saying, I like to come in here and fully define my sketches, right? Notice how I'm still underdefined. So what I need to do next is say that these 2 could be vertical to each other, and these 2 could be vertical to each other. Now, what some people might say is like, well, Peter, you know, you could just come in with a rectangle command and make that rectangle construction lines. Yes, I could do that. All right, so now we'll come in here and we'll simply just smart dimension it. We'll make these so that they're 3 inches. Notice that by me coming in and making it 3, that fully defined this. So I actually have a 3 inch square on this circle now, and it's making up 4 different arcs. So I'm gonna say okay to this and get out of that sketch. And now when I activate the trim surface command, notice that I have sketch number 6 pre-selected. I'm gonna come in and say remove sections. With that one selected, say okay to that. Look what happens when I come in here now. With trim number 4 that I created, that's this one here, as I click on it, it highlights the entire perimeter of that circle shape, right? Look what happens when I come over to this one. As I click on this top arc, SOLIDWORKS will only select that arc because that's how I split up that circle. All right, now why is this powerful? Well, check this out. Let's say I came in here and I utilize this plane and I want to create another sketch on it. All right, so we'll say sketch and we'll come in this time with a square. So when you're coming in, we're gonna actually end up doing a lofted surface from here, and just a little food for thought sort of thing, 2 cents. It's a good practice to make sure that your entities or elements match up to each other. Okay, so we're gonna come in, we're gonna make sure that our elements for our first circle had 4 in it. So we're gonna make sure that we have 4 entities in our second sketch that we're gonna loft up to. And guess what? A standard rectangle command will do that for me. So I'm gonna come in here, I can make this bigger, smaller, however I see fit. We'll come in and we'll make it so that it's gonna be the same size as our original circle. And we'll do that on this one too. So I'm gonna say that these 2 edges here are gonna be equal to each other. Great. So now what I'm gonna do is come in and do another trim. So surfaces, we'll say trim surface, and we're gonna, notice how I didn't have anything pre-selected. SOLIDWORKS is allowing me to say, do I wanna do standard or mutual this time? So I'm gonna click standard. I'm gonna select this sketch here, and a remove sections section is gonna be this one here. And then from there, simply right click to say okay to that. So as I was mentioning, we're going to come in here and do a lofted surface command. And it's a very good practice to try to make it to where your elements line up with each other. So as I see here, I have 1 and here's 1. Here's 2, there's 2. Here's 3, there's 3, and there's 4 right there and 4 right there. So now that we have 4 lined up with each other, I can create a not a degenerate loft this time. All right, so now I will say lofted surface. And what I want to do is I could easily come in here. I'll select this arc here and that square. Notice how SOLIDWORKS is coming in with a smooth transition for me. All right, cool. Let's make this a little more fun. I'm going to remove that one there, and I'm going to click on this edge instead. So notice how SOLIDWORKS is coming in and it's twisting my model around. Well, let's come in here. Let's make that green dot go up to the other side there. Okay, cool. So now I'm gonna say okay to that. So now I have a lofted surface going from one profile to the next. And since I was able to split this up into multiple elements or entities, whichever terminology you want to use there, I'm able to fine tune and specify where do I want my loft to go from. So then from here, I'm gonna activate loft command again, lofted surface. And this time I'm gonna click here, and then I'm gonna click on this one. And the same scenario, I'm gonna make it so that this point here comes to the other side. So that way we're twisting inward a little bit. I think I got that the wrong way though. Let's put that there. There we go. So now we got that lined up nicely, and I'm gonna say okay to that. So now the next trick that we're gonna do here is I'm not gonna do another loft. I can, but I'm not. What I'm gonna do next is a simple filled surface command. So filled surface is simply clicking here. I'm gonna come up here and click on this arc entity here, click on that edge there, come in here, click on that edge, and click on this edge. So arcs will come in and fill that in for me. Then from there, I'm gonna say okay to that. I'm not gonna go into detail about the contact between them. If you're gonna do contact, tangent, curvature, I'm just gonna leave it standard for that because that could be its own video altogether. I want to come in and do another filled surface. I'm gonna come in and click on this last open void here. Click, click, and then click, and then the final click. And then from there, right click again. So now, watch this. All I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push tab to hide those two surface bodies. And you'll see here that I got a pretty cool looking little part set up here. And so to finish this up, what I can do is come in and use the knit surface command. And I wanna knit all these bodies to each other. Let's see if that'll let me go. We'll merge entities, say okay to that. So how do I know that these are merged? You'll notice that these blue edges that were blue are now black. So hopefully you got something pretty nifty. See, I could use the standard trim in the surface trim command and be able to make it to where you have separate entities so you can make something cool like this. So once again, my name is Peter. Thank you again for taking a break with Valley CAD. Before I let you go, be sure to click that thumbs up button. Also subscribe so you get notified. Great. Well, have a great rest of the day and make sure you learn something new.